Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Township of Chatham Township Committee meeting, April 21st. Greg, has adequate notice of the meeting been given?
Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given to both the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 8th, 2016. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 8th, 2016, and notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 8th, 2016.
Very well. Please rise to the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Gallup, he said he'll be late. Mr. Kelly?
Here.
Mrs. Swartz?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Here.
And Mayor Ritter is away on business.
Yes, so both Mayor Ritter and Mr. Gallup have prior commitments this evening. Mr. Gallup may join us, time permitting. Any questions on the agenda this evening? All in favor?
Aye.
Very well. Reports? Mrs. Swartz?
Yes. First of all, the Madison Health Department reminds us that in conjunction with our Board of Health, May is Skin Cancer Awareness. So coming up, we're going to have to make sure we pay extra attention to that. The sun is higher and we'll be outside more often, so please take that into consideration. Chatham Township Environmental Commission invites everybody to Open Space Day, our 14th annual Open Space Day at the Green Pond area on Green Village Road, Saturday, April 23rd. That's coming up just a couple of days from now, from 9:30 to 12:30. Come for the day or come for just an hour and help us clean up and appreciate the great work that's going on with our open spaces. Senior Center is hosting once again on 4:30 at the Chatham train station, Saturday, April 30th, their shred event, and invitations are going out for their glorious garden tour. Mine came in the mail today, and that will be a kickoff party on June 3rd evening, that's Friday evening, and the glorious garden tour on Saturday, June 4th. So it's a great time and a great cause to support our seniors. And that's it.
Very well. Thank you. Mike?
Thank you. The community garden will be having its garden cleanup day on this Saturday from 9 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. This is for all plot holders who have a responsibility to do a little bit of cleanup on the garden as a whole in addition to their plots. So garden plot holders this Saturday, and there'll be several others later in the season for those who can't make it this Saturday. The Open Space Committee, Chairman Joe Bazralian has been meeting with various community groups and Eagle Scouts talking about projects for both the Averett Estate, Averett Open Space Trail, and also the Giralda Preserve trails for enhancements, benches, that kind of thing. He's gotten some interest from different Eagle Scout projects, and if anyone is a representative of a community group that would like to get involved in something like that, please contact Joe Bazralian, Open Space Chairman. The Department of Public Works is doing its thing with the way it normally does, but in addition to the roads and such, this is a spring, and spring is the start of the sports season, so they've been working at the skate park, repairing there. The materials arrived last week. They are working on the ramps and jumps, and they expect to be finished there within the next 2 weeks. At Colony Pool, it's been drained, it's being painted, prepared. They'll probably have a work crew there pretty much nonstop right through the start of the swim season on Memorial Day, so things are going smoothly there. And on the ball fields, what some people may not realize is that the ball fields are part of the DPW's responsibility, and for example, the artificial turf fields get the lines repainted twice a year, once just last week while the schools were closed for vacation. The grass fields get repainted, the lines on those are repainted weekly, and then the baseball diamonds get prepped and lined daily. So they're all a big part of the DPW's responsibilities. They also are now accepting applications for summer help Anyone who has an interest in college-age kids, anyone over 17, can send in an application and be considered for a spot with the DPW this summer. And if you'd like to take a look at the people and projects that are doing all this work, we have a video going up online next week. This is the second in our series of perspective videos, and it focuses on the DPW and shows the really wide variety of projects that they do all year long. So look at our website, and it will be going up next week. And that's it.
Thank you, Mike. I just want to pass along the website. Our website has been enhanced and redone, and we want to welcome everyone to take the online survey. So please go to the website and give us your feedback. We've received some good feedback so far. So please visit our website and tell us what you think. Also, Colony Pool. Speaking of Colony Pool, we are looking for lifeguards also. So if you are a certified Red Cross lifeguard, please go to the Colony Pool website, and we're looking for summer help. So anyone wants a job, they're out there. Who said there's no jobs? So tonight we have two presentations, and we want to welcome our auditors, and I'll let them pronounce the name, otherwise I'll mess it up. We'll start with Valerie Dolan, and the floor is yours. Thank you for coming.
My name is Valerie Dolan. I'm partner with Nisavacia. This is my associate, Andrew Kaczynski. He's the man on the floor doing all of the field work for me. We were appointed this year to conduct the audit of Township of Chatham as a fresh set of clean eyes, and I wanted to come before the committee to let you know that our audit is complete. They were all been given our copy of our audit, and it's available. And that in that audit, I want to say that the Township of Chatham should be commended. The financials are in phenomenal condition. The staff in the finance office, the clerk's office, everyone, tax office was welcoming to us. They were nothing but accommodating to us. It's a lengthy process to go through an audit, and it's a lengthy process, especially when it's someone new, to learn the ropes and the way things are. That being said, we were able to get through our audit, and like I said, everything is in wonderful financial condition. A few highlights that I do want to share: that fund balance at the end of the year was up about $110,000. Primarily, that increase is attributable to the increase that corresponds with your tax rate increase. Your tax rate increase went up from about 98.7% to about 99.1%.
We don't like that word, tax rate increase, so
Well, tax
maybe you want to rephrase
collection
that?
rate.
Thank you.
How's that sound? The tax
sounds much
collection
better.
rate had an increase, which means your delinquencies are down, which helps in the end. The township continued to pay down all their debt. All their debt obligations were paid and paid in full. And you currently have debt in both forms of serial bonds, bond anticipation notes, and loans. And it's in a great mix of debt, and we were able to get through everything on those debt, and all of those payments are being made. There are a few items that we've cited in the report, but they're all what we refer to as pure housekeeping items. They are minor in nature, nothing of any real magnitude. They are just a few things that we found that, after speaking with administration, are in the process of being corrected. And I didn't know, before I go any further, if there are any questions that I can answer. It's much easier to answer questions than to start spewing numbers.
Sure. And just so the public knows, you have met with, obviously, Tom and the Finance Committee.
Mm-hmm.
The committee, we all have a copy of the audit, which we're all responsible for signing the audit, that at least we have received it and have hopefully have read it. So I just want the public to understand that. I would just ask, coming in new, as a new auditor, we hear the word transparency a lot. I think it's the most misused word in government today, but it is a buzzword. As a new auditor coming in, how did you look at our website? Did you look at the availability of our budget, our financial audit? Did you find things? Did you say, wow, this is, it's all here, I got it?
Right.
It wasn't hidden anywhere. It was very transparent, is what I'm getting at.
One of the things that we do as coming in for an audit is we do a lot of pre-planning. And we're required to do a lot of pre-planning and understanding the township so that we can design an audit program to work within yours. We were able to do a lot of our pre-planning from our offices off of your website, We were able to find prior year financial documents, we were able to research budget, and during our audit process, we were able to go back and forth and look up things. Well, why are this? Okay, well, it looks like in 2012, this is when this reserve was established. It was very informative to us coming in that we didn't have to bombard administration with a lot of little questions because we could research it ourselves off of your own website, which is to be commended. It's great to see, and they were all in a manner that we could find them at the touch of a finger. They weren't buried anywhere, so they were right in the forefront where they were able to be viewed by all.
That's great. Well, that's good to hear. Thank you. Just a couple of things. Did you get a sense of going through the audit? Did you see something that you said, well, why isn't this again, for lack of a better term, a separate line item issue, or you should break this out? If you could just expand on that.
No, our review includes reviewing all of the budget line items, both revenue and appropriation line items, and in those reviews, we found everything where we would have expected them to be. We are, as my firm audits over 70 municipalities, and there is nothing in your budget or in your line items that we felt was not in the normal place or really out of the purview. It all made perfect sense to where those items were, and they made sense in comparison to other towns and municipalities.
And the last question I have is just concerning surplus.
Yeah.
Because we are fortunate enough
To
have a
have a
surplus.
healthy
And
surplus.
municipalities are fortunate enough to have a surplus, unlike the Board of Ed, who will be speaking next. But in your work and over your career, 70 towns, could you give us, just an understanding about the municipal budget process, surplus, and if there are any examples where surplus has gone bad very quickly, or what happened, surplus nightmares and surplus maybe good stories too.
Correct. One of the things that we do look at is a surplus and the consistency of a surplus. When you say surplus, those are monies that are really regenerated each year and refunneled back into your budget process. They become available. The monies that are held in surplus reserves in a municipality are really there as your comfort zone. They are your insurance policy if something were to happen. So one of the things we asked, and we spoke with Tom and Finance, was where is Chatham's comfort zone and where do they want to be, so that we could understand where you felt was your comfort zone. Some towns have percentage numbers, some towns have set dollar amounts that they like to work with. That way, when we're reviewing everything that we're looking at, we can make sure that if something is coming down the pike, that we would know, well, you're going in a different direction than your original plan. Are you aware of it? And are you making repercussion changes if what's your next year's event going to be? Or if you're going too high and you're going way above your numbers, are you comfortable being on above your numbers, or is there some other items that we can do? And then what we do is we have been in situations many times where the best laid plans go quickly, and a lot of times one of the biggest areas is in tax appeals, which is where we've seen a lot of towns use up a lot of their reserves, because in a tax appeal, yes, the money has to be refunded based on an appeal, but the thing that doesn't equate is the dollar for dollar. Towns are faced with paying back 100% on a tax appeal. However, the school and the county got their percentage, and the townships have only received their small portion of that money, but they have to pay back 100%. So we always make sure that there's some reserves for appeals and things of that nature, and any unforeseen expenses, so that you have that luxury that if there was a Sandy or another Irene, something were to come, you have your own money to borrow from that you can then pay yourself back, versus going out and having to borrow from an outside source to fund any kind of emergency. So looking at those numbers, we went back and looked at Chatham's, and we're very comfortable with where you've placed yourself and the percentage ranges, and that you were staying within your own set guidelines.
Very well. Thank you. Karen, Mike?
Oh, just to repeat what you said, the Finance Committee did meet about 2 weeks ago and went into detail and asked a number of the questions, especially surplus, those kinds of areas that you're zeroing in on, and they were very informative and helpful, so my compliments.
Thank you.
I would just like to say welcome. You know, this
Thank
is
you.
new turf for you. Obviously, you're experienced in doing what it is that you do. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much.
As we've stated, the word transparency really comes up a lot, but it means a lot to us, because we want everybody to know that
what we see is what they can see and what you see. So we're here. If you have any questions, you already know how helpful
Yeah.
our administration is and our township staff, but everyone here is just at your disposal.
Perfect.
So thanks.
Thank you very much for your time.
Great to have you here.
And appreciate the
Thank you for
opportunity to
coming.
work with the township.
Thank you, Valerie. Thank you, Andrew. Our next presentation, we would like to welcome the Board of Ed is here tonight, and Dr. LaSousa and Ms. Weber, President of the Board, and you're going to present the budget in its finest fashion.
Well, again, thank you for having us. Again, my name is Joe Weber. I'm the current president of the Board of Education. I'm green with envy of your surplus in your budget, which we don't have any of. So I'm just going to go through our budget, some of the highlights, and point out what the additions are, maybe cover some things that we couldn't fit into the budget, do some comparison to some of our peer groups and also across Morris County. But just to set the framework, the goal of the budget has always been to maintain the high level of excellence, maintain a reasonable class size, optimal for that particular grade. Obviously, the smaller grades, the lower grades should have smaller classes, and as you get closer to the high school, you can go up in size. But keeping it at an optimal class size is also a goal. And to keep the budget at the lowest possible cost to the taxpayers, but still maintain the performance and the results-driven curriculum that we have, and make sure that any spending that we do is efficient and effective. So that's the framework or the goals of every budget, and it's been that way for decades and decades and decades. So again, just to show you how Chatham compares against some of our peer groups, I just want to explain the various numbers on here. The far left column for budgetary costs, these numbers are provided by the state. The left column on the budgetary cost is fixed costs that we can compare across all these districts. So any variable costs like transportation or judgments against the district or food services, anything that might vary between district to district depending on enrollment or types of services, they're removed on the left-hand side. So we're about $13,000 on the budgetary cost. To give you a complete picture, the next column over is total spending, and that bakes back in some of those variable costs, the transportation, the food services, judgments against a district, or the pension and the Social Security cost, any capital, some capital expenditures. So this is a comparison, and there we're about $16,000 per pupil per year. Now, the next two columns over are really what I'd like to highlight most on, because you want to be as efficient as you can, but not to the point where you sacrifice results or effectiveness. So in this instance, the AP participation rate, these are the numbers. 70% of our juniors and seniors are taking AP courses. The only one that's higher than that is Princeton at the top of the list, and you could see some of the others are in the 60s, 40s, in that range. But where I think it really hits home is the next column over. So for the amount of money that we spend and the preparation that we do and the AP participation rate, while we're not the highest, the next column over shows how successful our students are after they leave Chatham. So it's great that they have a fantastic experience here, but how successful are they when they get out into college or postgraduate work and the workplace? So what this is showing is the percentage of our graduates that are still enrolled in college 16 months out. That's our number is 93%. So compared to Princeton, who had maybe a higher cost and higher AP participation rate, 86 is a great number, 93 is a better number. So this is to show how well prepared the kids are when they leave Chatham. So I think that's an interesting statistic to put next to the dollars that we're spending per pupil.
Joe, that's not just those who are enrolled or accepted, you said 16 months out?
16 months out are still enrolled.
Okay, very good.
So they make sure they go through an entire year and then another semester to see who's still enrolled in college 16 months after graduation. So that's a pretty impressive number, 93%. And again, I should have said at the beginning, if you have any questions on any slide, it's probably better just to interrupt and ask them as we hit the slide, so we don't lose the context. So if you do have a question, please just shout out.
So I'll ask a question then. I think you covered it, but I just want to make sure. So the total spending per student number, that's essentially if you took the entire budget and you divided by total number of students, that's it?
That's correct.
That's
Yes.
Okay.
And it includes all those variable types expenses.
Right.
Like, we don't bus nearly as much as some other districts and vice versa. There may be some districts that don't do any busing or any transportation. So that could be a significant swing in spending. So yes, your statement is accurate. So moving on to the next slide, this is how we compare across Morris County. The only one that's lower than Chatham is Dover. Boonton is the highest. Mountain Lakes, I just wanted to point out, they're intentionally left off. It would have been an unfair comparison because baked into their school district budget, they have a school for the deaf, which would have inflated their numbers, and it would not have been an accurate comparison. So just to show you where Chatham stacks up in Morris County, on the budgetary side, we're 12% lower than the average and 11% on the total spending per pupil. So again, just to give you some sort of averages and an idea of what other districts inside Morris County are also spending, budgetary as well as total spending per pupil. Okay, so just a little, again, just some background on the numbers for this particular year. Our state aid was increased by $50,000. We're still not back up to the number that we were at in state aid when it was cut, so we're still working our way back up slowly. It'll probably be quite some time before we get back to where we were. Our health benefits increased significantly this year, 15%, and because of the increase, the district qualifies for a $110,000 tax levy. From last year's budget, we still maintain a $313,000 bank capped. So the maximum possible tax levy that we could propose is about $424,000, or an equivalent of 2.72% increase. So that would be the max. And then if we can, the next slide, we're just going to go through a few comparisons of just to show you what it's been the last few years, and then we have another slide that will show you possibly the last 7, 8, 9 years. So last year we proposed 1.77%. So it was a very, very streamlined budget because of the referendum that we were also proposing. The budget passed last year, the referendum was defeated. The prior year, 14-15, there was a 3.34% increase, and that was because we added a second question for STEM resources and additional staff for our science, technology, and engineering math programs. And the year before that, it was 3.46. Again, it was the base budget, and then there were second questions for additional security personnel at the schools, as well as counseling resources. So those are why those are a little bit higher. So getting into next year, 16-17. Again, the goal is to maintain the programs and the curriculums without having to cut any curriculum or programs or staff, which are essentially one and the same. And the things that we felt we absolutely needed to add were, we've only added 4 additions. Top of the list is a cross-country coach. That is our fastest growing sport in the district. Dr. LaSousa, does that have over 200 students now in track and field? And
Spring track has over 200.
just spring track, just one of our seasons has over 200
200
students.
kids came out. We had to cut this year.
We cut? Interesting. It's always been a no-cut sport. So over 200 kids, so we just needed additional personnel to make sure the kids were safe and they had enough, oversight. We're also going to increase a robotics stipend. We've had a lot of interest as the kids come through the new STEM program at the middle school. They're getting involved in clubs and more of the robotics programs, and we just need we just have to increase that stipend because the amount of time that individual, our instructor, is spending with the students. We've increased the athletic training budget to hire a part-time trainer. We only have one trainer at the high school for 1,000 students that are involved in athletics, and he's spread too thin, and he can't possibly be at every field. If he's up at Cougar, he's not at Haas, and vice versa. So we're going to put in $20,000 into the budget to supplement that for a part-time trainer.
So
Yes.
From the trainer perspective, is that a after school, around the clock, around the year?
Our current trainer he comes in a little bit late, but then stays till about 7 or 8 o'clock when the games are over.
Okay.
This particular position would be to supplement that, most likely at the field place. Whereas
Throughout the year, as the sports change, he's there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Mike, the trainer, comes in. Mike, did you want to add something to that?
Only that amount probably will enable us to have additional support in the fall and in the winter, in the spring rather. And in the winter, the programs are more concentrated and they're using the same facilities, so we're less, dispersed all over the district.
And then additional cost of $70,000 for technology for the infrastructure. We're fortunate enough to have a lot of Chromebooks and machinery. We just need help in support of those. The other capital improvements that we're doing next year are coming out of our capital reserve account, so they're not baked into the budget, but just quickly, I just wanted to go over. We're going to upgrade the restrooms at Lafayette Avenue School in Southern. Middle school is having an upgrade for their fire alarm system. The high school, we're going to repave the front, just the front portion of the parking lot. And at Southern Boulevard, we're going to relocate the offices toward the back and repurpose the front area as an additional classroom. So everybody will funnel in the back entrance of Southern Boulevard. Does anybody have any questions on the additions to the budget? We had a laundry list. This was the 4. Just a quick overview of where the money goes. So we're proposing a 2.35 increase in next year's budget to accommodate those 4 items, as well as keep the lights on and pay for our health insurance, which, again, if I could repeat, went up 15% this year. It essentially went up 0% last year, so the 15% is significant and really eats into the budget overall.
So of that 2.35%, how much is that 15%?
It's all but 0.3.
The 15% makes up how much of the 2.35%?
It's difficult to say because part of the 15% automatically has 2% of an increase built on it. So the increase was over $2 million. The increase was over $2 million for the total health care increase. So a portion of that, as to say, is just the 15%. When you factor in the Chapter 78, our costs are going up over $2 million, for health care.
Right.
Yeah, but I do believe that but I do believe that almost the entire 0.35% equates the health insurance increase of 15%.
I thought it was 0.3%.
Yeah.
Ate up the health insurance when we went over it. And Peter's worked with the Finance Committee, and we continuously run what-if scenarios. What if we move this? What if we change that? And it's essentially at least the 0.3% of this budget. The 2% is the lights on portion, and the health care took up most of the rest of it.
So, well, okay, go ahead. I got it. I'm good. I'll come back.
Okay, very good. So again, just to show you a breakdown of where all of the money is going to, I mean, it's a large budget. Capital reserve, I don't want to read every note, but operating expense alone is $64 million. And then to get to the 67, we have some debt repayment and some federal sources. So I just wanted to give you an idea. So at 2.35%, this is where the numbers align. If you could flip to the next slide, Mike, I think it's... So going across this goes down into a little bit more detail. So we have our general ed and our special ed costs, $22,000 and $10,000. There's $33 million of our budget is just instructional cost. And then everything below the top 2 lines are, activities and administrative costs and just general administrative items to keep the lights on and help the instructional cost of the 33. So almost half the budget is purely instructional.
Is that a good number or a bad number?
Well, I guess it's a matter of opinion. I mean, Mike can answer that. I think it's best to have the highest numbers in the instructional space than in the administrative space.
Yeah, I'm just curious in relative to other school districts. That's an interesting number.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd say we're about on par with other districts, but really instructional, it's almost all instructional. So employee benefits, of course, are going to the teachers who are in the classroom. That's instructional. That's a big portion here. Curriculum and instruction straight up have to do with supplies and professional development, et cetera. Co-curricular activities, is that is that instructional? I mean, I think it is. The Key Club, athletic teams, that's part of the instructional program. So the reality is that most of this is related to instruction one way or the other. And I'd say we're in the realm of, 75% or so of our costs have to do with the people that we employ, either their salaries or their benefits.
So here's the bottom line figures, how it impacts taxpayers in both the township and the borough. So for each $100,000 of assessed, $100,000 for a home assessment, in the borough it would be $33.23, and in the township, $29.80. And to extrapolate that out, in the borough, a home at $500,000 would be $166, and in the township, $149. And for a home valued at $1 million in the borough, it would be an increase of $332, and in the township, $298, at the 2.35% increase. Again, just to look back over several years, we're proposing 2.35. Over the last 5 years, the average was 2.66. Prior to that, you'll see a 7 and an 8%, so they were much higher in years past, 8%, 7%, 4%. The last 5 years, we've been staying right in the 2.5 range as best we could. Some of the 3s in the prior years because of the second questions that were passed by the voters. The taxing authority, if we go to 2.35% scenario, the budget retains $220,000 of bank cap, rainy day, if we need it. We didn't want to deplete the bank cap in its entirety in case we need it for next year, lacking a surplus. These are on the priority list that we could not fit in. The first one pains us the most. These are things that we could not get into the budget and maintain a 2.3% increase. The top of the list is the school psychologist for $100,000. That remains at the top of the list if we can find money either through breakage or some other means. That will be the first item that we will fund. We are not proposing it to go into the budget, but we are still looking to fund that in some manner for next year. We believe that we could put another 5 health professionals throughout the district and they would not be bored by any stretch. But at the high school we could, everybody reads the papers, the kids have a little bit more stress, struggling with, depression and addictions, and this is the top of our list, bar none, a school psychologist. Additional maintenance staff, we've neglected our physical structure at the expense of curriculum and program. This would be the next item up, just to help maintain some of our property and our facilities. Additional robotics would be next, track coach, some baseball, softball coaches, and additional security cameras. Again, the track coach is required just because of the volume of kids that are going out for track, which is fantastic. We want to accommodate as many as we can, but it has to be done safely. Softball, baseball coaches, we're very fortunate to live in a community where folks volunteer. Currently, we have some volunteers in those positions as assistant coaches. We would like to be able to get another paid coach on both of those teams, and additional security cameras just to beef up the infrastructure and augment the cameras that we currently have in the buildings. May 2nd, we have our final budget hearing where we are going to propose the 2.3% increase. So that's coming up in May. Dr. LaSousa and Peter, Mr. DeQuilla have gone around to every building and have done 6 public presentations of the budget at each building, and the members of the public were welcome to go to those. We also presented to the borough, and we were fortunate enough to present to the township as well. Does anybody have any questions?
Are you done, or?
I am done.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I'll throw out a few because Dr. LaSousa loves my questions. We have the money to turn the lights on? We can do that.
Now you're just showing off. It's cruel.
So just to go back to that other question, 2% is, as you say, to just keep the lights on.
Maintain the program.
I get it, yeah. And obviously costs are rising everywhere. Maintain what we have on average is going up 2% a year. And that just seems like that's the number. You hit that number. And the 0.35% is being driven up by the healthcare costs, or the 0.3.
And the additional 4 items on that
Which
list.
allows you to exceed the 2% cap because it's healthcare costs.
Correct.
And of course there are other items. When you've dealt with this a lot, of course, and you deal with constituents, which is just a fancy word for residents, neighbors, and friends. But they do get your ear, and they do ask you questions. And it seems to be that 2% seems to always be the baseline. Like, why is 2% always the baseline? You know, why does it always have to be, we're going up 2% and then we're going to figure out what we're going to do from there? So how do you respond to the question of why do you start at 2%? What do you do to say it's another 2%, it's been 2.6% for 10 years, 2.5, whatever the average was on that slide. Do you say, well, it's 2%, it is what it is, or do you say 2%, where can we backtrack from here? What do we look at administratively, what program, whatever it might be? How does that exercise play out? I think people
We start at zero.
Right.
Yeah.
We start at zero. How can we get by with 0%? And then we have to pay the teachers and the increase in contract, and I'm going to defer to Peter, but I just want to answer your question on the process from a board member to a council member. We started a 0% increase and see what we can live with without having to cut program or staff, which again are synonymous. And then we start looking at the bills that we have to pay and the increase in teacher contracts and increase in just our fixed expenses, and then it starts creeping up, and then we generally get close to the 2%. As we get close to 1.5, we start to break out into a cold sweat that we're way beyond where we want it to be, and then again we look at the fixed costs, and the goal is to always maintain the excellent program and not slip back. And the 2% is where we land. But again, I'm sure Peter has a more eloquent accounting explanation, but we start at zero is the process.
I'll pick right up on start at zero. We go through zero-based budgeting. So we ask every budget manager to justify every dollar that they want to spend. And we've had the pleasure of having the Chatham schools, with the exception of a small hiccup last year, our enrollment has grown over at least the last 10 years. So we're constantly educating more students. The 2% comes up, I don't know, is the magic number, you could say, imposed by government. There are certain expenses that go up beyond 2% every year. For example, our health benefits, I'd be ecstatic if they went up 2% a year. Our other insurances, we struggle to keep them at 2% or hopefully less than 3% or less. There are expenses that we keep tightening. We keep trying to be as proactive as we can in saving money and buying better, utilizing state contracted vendors, utilizing different co-ops, entering into any shared service agreement or resource sharing that we possibly can. So we basically start with a clean slate and build it up every year. And unfortunately, not every expense, or some of the bigger expenses, which are the salaries, we're lucky to keep at most bargaining units all at 2% under their current existing contracts. And unfortunately, the health benefits, that's something that is difficult to control. And currently, even with a 15% increase in health benefits, our private insurance is still less expensive than if the district went into the state plan. So I would say between Dr. LaSousa and myself, we kind of leave no stone unturned. We look under each rock for whoever is squirreling something away.
So this year in the municipality, this is the first year we will pay more in health benefits to retirees than we do to current employees. This is the first year. So we've rolled over. Many have rolled over much sooner than we have. We no longer provide lifetime health benefits to hires for the last several years. Where's the school board on that? I don't know your health care plans. Do you provide?
We don't provide retirement. We don't provide retirees health benefits. The state, for local education agencies, the state picks up that tab.
Okay.
The state is trying to push that back on us
Right.
in various ways, but there's no legislation yet that has really come about from that task force report. But I think returning to the main dynamic is that we are in a business of educating children, and the number of children that we have impacts how we can do, our bottom line. And I said at the Borough Council last week that in looking at, and I mentioned this a couple years ago when I was here, I didn't look at the township this week, but if you look at the borough, the U.S. Census from 2000 to 2010, the population of the borough increased by 5.7%. From 2010 to 2014, there was another increase of less than 1%. In that same period of time, so the borough population increased by about 6%. Our enrollment went up 40%. and it's the same dynamic in the township. And so when our enrollment goes up 40%, we're stuck. I mean, we have to hire people to supervise and educate the children. Last year, we really thought that we would have a slight decline in enrollment. We popped up, and we popped up primarily because of kids moving into the Southern Boulevard School neighborhood. And Tom and I have talked many times about how our 2% is based solely on what the tax levy was the previous year. So if there are any additional ratables or increases in the total tax levy amount in the municipality, we don't get any, we get no part of that, which I think is wholly unfair, because the people who are moving in to the houses all around this building that have been knocked down and then replaced by 5,000 square foot homes are not empty nesters purchasing those homes. The people moving in are coming into our office with 3 kids, and they're coming into Southern Boulevard School or the middle school or the high school, and we have to, of course, educate those kids. We want to educate those kids, but we don't get any kind of consideration from a funding perspective for the increase in enrollment.
Well, you get an increased tax base.
We get an increased tax base, but the 2% is based on the prior year's tax levy increase.
Right.
So it's not like the increased
changing
revenue that's coming into the township, it's not like a tiny portion of that is steered to help the school district offset the increased costs that we faced when new kids move into town.
So let me just take this one step further. You know, it is a budget item, but it's more a philosophical question. When you're dealing with points that you just raised, and you talked earlier about a psychologist for $100,000, do you ever have the philosophical question of where does our responsibility as educators start and stop? You know, how much are we supposed to do? Because there's obviously a big question about, you know, maybe educators or the education establishment usurping some parental authority, responsibility. Some parents are happy to have that, let you handle it. Other parents aren't. So do you ever have that philosophical question of, as educators, is this a position that we should be in? Should we be hiring this person, or is that up to the parents to handle this issue with their child, or whatever it might be? But just that question of where does reading, writing, arithmetic start and stop once you go beyond those parameters?
We have those discussions all of the time. The state makes up the mind for us, unfortunately, in many of these cases. So when the state and every single legislator that represents this district votes for the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights, and it dramatically expands the definition of harassment, intimidation, and bullying, and requires us to investigate anytime any person even mentions one of those terms. And that's just one example of many, many, many that I can cite that the state imposes upon us in terms of responsibility, and then forces us, of course, to assume much greater liability from a legal standpoint. We don't have the choice to, we don't have the benefit of thinking philosophically all the time about, well, do we really have to deal with this issue, or should it be the responsibility of the parents? We frequently enlist the help of the police when we have something that appears to be strictly outside of the school but has been brought to us, like some kind of a threat or bullying case in the social media world, and the police help us with that. But for the most part, we're talking about requirements that we have to meet based on either 18A or 6A.
Mike, Karen?
With the rising enrollment, did you have to add any teaching staff this year?
Yes. We had to add 2 teachers alone at Southern that we did not anticipate adding. And those 2 teachers right there, you know, that's $75,000 a piece.
Okay. And what is the raise for teacher salaries this year? And where does it stand? Is it part of a multi-year contract that you're in the middle of?
Right. Well, we're in negotiations right now. The previous agreement was the dollar amount on the salary guide was 2.75%, but that was offset by give backs or whatever you want to call it to get the net number to be below 2%. So the aggregate amount of the total contract that we're in now was 2% a year.
A year, okay, thank you. And could you kind of explain what the process is now going forward to approve the budget and to vote on board members? I mean, at the new system?
Sure. I'll start, Peter, if I go straight. So the budget, as long as it stays within the, under the cap allowed by law, the budget will be passed at a public meeting on May 2nd. We still went through the same vetting process where we presented it to the public several times here in the board, during board meetings as well as satellite meetings, to solicit some feedback and you know, anybody's thoughts or concerns on a particular item. We changed it based on those meetings, some feedback. So the presentation that you saw tonight is slightly different based on the feedback at the various schools and the public sessions. As far as the board members, though, the elections for new board members has now moved to the November time slot. So in November of 16, there'll be 3 members up for Board of Ed that should have rolled off in April, but were extended until November. If the election was to ever move back to an April time slot, the board members, you'd have to move it forward to the next April, so that you can't shorten a board member's term, but you can elongate it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question,
Yes,
Mr. Kelly?
no, it's right on target. Thank
The
you.
only other process, Ms., that would, whether or not we would have, as last year when we had the vote, or this year without the vote, our budget is still required to be submitted to the Executive County Superintendent of Schools, where the Executive County Superintendent and the Executive County Business Official review the budget, and this year they passed it with flying colors, or approved it, and, you know, gave kudos to the district on the budget. So that's one step that we're still required to do.
Okay. And I know this is the operating budget tonight, but as far as a capital budget, the capital projects and going forward, could you give us a little snapshot of where that is?
Sure. So there are some capital, improvements, minor capital improvements included in this budget that are funded out of the capital reserve account. We still plan to go ahead with a referendum in September of this year.
In September?
In September. Okay. So right now we are awaiting approval, which should come to us any day now from the state, which would detail for us the percentage of debt service that the state would assume, given the projects that we've submitted. We held about a half a dozen public information sessions in the fall and sent a survey out to the community, as I'm sure you are aware. So the projects that would be moving forward would be a straight renovation of the high school auditorium, a straight renovation of the middle school auditorium without expanding the footprint of either of those spaces, an addition of computer lab, STEM lab space at the middle school, some improvements to Cougar Field, some partial roof replacements, and then 4 classroom addition at Milton Avenue School. And each of those questions would be independent of one another, so the voter could vote yes or no on every single one of the projects as he or she sees fit.
And does the local board ever have the authority or flexibility to have that vote in November at the general election instead of in a separate election in September? Or are your hands tied on that?
No, that's one of the 5 dates.
You could do that if you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
It's already set in September.
I mean, that's what we've all planned on and agreed to and thought about, but...
I mean, we would have liked to have had it in March, but we could not get the information to the Department of Education and get the feedback in time. So September is the next date available.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question. When you talk about referendums, you talk about polling the families, surveys, etc. How many families we have in the school district, how many people traditionally turn out to voice their opinions, to ask hard questions, to write to you, to grab you in ShopRite, to vote, the percentage of voter turnout when it comes to this. This is one of the most hot button issues in our community, and yet when the rubber meets the road and election day comes, where are the people? What is the percentage lately? I know it has been low, but we had a big issue, so I think we had some fairly decent turnout. But
even with the big, what I would consider the big referendum last year, what we were at 20%, Peter? 20%. I thought 80% of the town would come out. 20%, and it was a huge proposal. huge proposal, and it was only 20%. On a typical election, are we at 10%? 15 if we're lucky.
When it comes to respondents to the surveys, is it better than that? Is it every family turns in a survey and then 20?
No, I mean,
turn in
we
votes?
sent a survey to every single residence in the community, not just the parents of the school district. I just was looking, we had, I think, in the 900s was the number of surveys we had returned to us. We also made them available up here at the Borough Hall, at the library. I think we dropped some off, so we put them out. 900 seemed like a good survey response, but you're right, the voter turnout is always kind of low.
I was disappointed with the 900. I know you were. I mean, there's 18,000 residents. We have 4,156 students in the district. I was hoping for far greater than 900, given the press it had received. You know, it was a failed referendum, so now we're rejiggering it and saying, okay, if that failed, what do you want? Here's all the projects, let's rate them. And the September referendum only has items that received at least a 50% or significantly greater than 50%. Anything that had less than 50% interest is not on the September part of that list that Dr. LaSousa went through. But I was disappointed with 900 return surveys.
Is there a plan? Is there an ongoing drumbeat to get more support? Or
Yes, there will be, but we need to get the figures from the state so that we can state clearly, this is what the cost of each project would be, cost estimate. This is what the state would pick up. Right now, we estimate about $15.8 million for all of those projects together if they were all to pass. Last year's referendum was about 24.8, so that's about $9 million less. And we are hoping for somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 to $3 million offset from the state. So the total would be roughly half the size of the referendum from last year.
when I said support, I actually didn't mean support, because that would, I meant
Feedback.
participation.
Sure.
I
I
mean
knew
feedback,
what you meant.
right, I'm not out there stumping for one thing or
No, I
another.
heard it, but,
Certainly.
you know, at least get the information out to the folks so they can express their opinions one way or the other. And we will do an additional series of public meetings. And we try to hold them during the day and at night and at, you know, various locations. And, you know, if 20 people show up, we're happy. You know,
Well, I will say, Mr. Tom Salvis in the back and our communication specialist, and what's our ratings are now off the charts.
Oh.
And I know the Board of Ed is right there with us, so this really helped actually communicating with the people, and and that whole process, I think, you know, it's one thing to say there's only 20 people come to the meetings, but
Sure.
there are people tuning in.
Absolutely.
And the more people who are made aware of that and have the opportunity to tune in, yeah, it's a good thing, you know.
Yeah.
I think part of the concern with moving that budget process to November was that there would be less of this. Well, that was the fear. And so I thank you all for coming to present the budget to us and to the community to have another look at it and to still examine it and still have a say in what's going on and understand it. And as far as the voting, you know, it's like you get the government you deserve, right? So if you show up to vote, you do. If you don't, well, it is what it is, right? So, but anything else?
No, thank you very much.
Thank you for having us.
Keelan, Mrs. Weber.
Thank you very
Thank you.
Dr. Sousa, thank you very much.
thanks for getting on your seats, gentlemen.
Very good.
Okay, as everyone disassembles and reassembles, we'll move on, and we have, we'll open it up now to a hearing of citizens. This is an opportunity for any member of the public to come forth to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearing tonight. So I welcome everyone to come forth. Mr. Blumenthal?
Yes, Martin Blumenthal, 99 Longview Avenue, in the middle of the Highgate development. When the planning board 4 years ago, over 4 years ago, approved the project was supposedly to move forward in a timely fashion. Well, 2 years and 1 month ago is when they put the first spade in the ground. This has been a very arduous time for us. This has affected our quality of life. It's 2 years, 1 month, and it's not over yet. We are up to here with this. We want it to end. Whatever you have to do to make this come to a conclusion, this is what we would like you to do. We have lived in this town, paid taxes for 48 years. We want a road that's good. Right now, we have a road that finally is paved, but the first coat, which means the manholes are sticking up, the other requirements that required be dug up and resurfaced, I think the town should require the developer to put a second coat on the road so we have a decent road, and the town will maintain it properly, because if it has a second coat, I believe they can, and this will be a big burden. Many times, my wife had to have one of the construction people drive her car up because she couldn't navigate the road. This is something that shouldn't be happening. So, other than saying how unhappy we are and how this has affected our lives, I'm asking you to do whatever you can to bring this to a conclusion. I think that's only a fair thing that you can do. Certainly, nobody envisioned this going on this long, and for whatever reason the case is, incompetency, stupidity, lack of cooperation between whoever, I don't know. I don't care. We want this completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Blumenthal. And you know this has been a arduous, we understand where you're coming from, process. We have certainly tried to do as much as we can, both legally and constructively and positively, and try to move it forward in any way we can. It's been challenging, to say the least. I don't know if you want to address the road specifically. We are going to address something later on tonight, which we'll discuss when we get there. But John, if you want to discuss the road and why we wouldn't necessarily pave it right now, or
Well, first, I'll just mention, under the consent agenda, it's Resolution 2016-0-108. It's a resolution that's declaring Phoenix Chatham 1 and Phoenix Chatham 2 in default. And basically, that's to take action that the corporations are in default of the developers agreement, and that it basically identifies that we call in the bond. And so the action is that will be taken is that the bonding company will be notified that the township has declared the developers agreement in default. This will start the process of getting the bonding company involved. The objective is not to cause a delay in getting the work done. This is there's not action to or taking legal actions to prohibit or remove Mr. Guns or Phoenix Chatham from completing the work, but it is putting Plan B in place to get the bonding company involved and to move forward to complete the road and complete the improvements that properly and within the time frame that was that's necessary to make the development safe and frankly just bring closure to this long process. The issue of paving the road as their final course. The concern with doing that is that now that the road is basically constructed, there will be a substantial amount of construction vehicles coming up for the construction of the homes. And so basically there is a mechanism in place that he does have to pave the road within a certain time frame so that it doesn't extend too far into the future, that the road is completed. But that is an open issue that we do need to discuss further. The current developers agreement, their current resolution from the planning board indicates that all the road has to be completed and final coating done by 2017. So that is an open issue that needs to be further discussed and when the final coating is done.
Certainly the town's interest is we don't want to relieve the developer from maintaining that road while construction is happening, because the road is frankly, a road is designed with the base pavement to allow the construction to occur, and then you put the final pavement after the fact. It's not necessarily designed to complete the road 100% and then have all this construction activities, because we certainly don't want the service life of the road to be diminished. We want to extend what it was designed for. What does need to happen as part of the construction is that the catch basins and the manholes, they're supposed to have asphalt skirts around them so that there is a smooth transition as you drive up, so that you don't hit a rim, or if you do know that. And then we can certainly take a look at that and make sure. Usually it's done pre-winter, and usually it has to be repaired after the winter, after a few snowstorms, because it is just a skirt that's around the manholes, but that has to be maintained, and so that will certainly be looked at immediately to make sure that the road can be safely traveled without having those castings be a hazard.
All right, thank you. Good evening. Ronald Gunn, the developer for Phoenix Chatham 1 and Chatham 2. I'd first like to make some comments regarding the Blumenthals, the only residents in the subdivision. They certainly have had a trying time and a lengthy time in getting satisfaction and completion of our project. Some of the things that have taken us so long, I think I need to share with the council. When we originally established a bond for the property development, it was for $749,000 and an inspection fee of $37,000 and change. Hatchmont's offices decided that we needed to increase that considerably to a bond that was over $1 million. The bonding company does not like to give a bond over $1 million on a residential construction project where there was no income-producing property at the initiation. That took us 4 to 5 months. That got us nearly to December before we actually put a shovel in the ground the day after Christmas. And then we had 2 to 3 months of snow. We took a long time with many things, but I have to share with you some of what caused us delays. January of this year, January the 11th through the 15th, we installed the roadbed subbase material in the eastern section from the Blumenthal's house to the eastern cul-de-sac, some 460 feet. Hatchmont inspectors were on site for the 5 days. I have logs and bills for their inspection fees for those days to substantiate that they were there, plus my own personal log seeing them every day. If it wasn't Brian Shields, it was Charlie Morgan's. 5 of the 5 days, not full-time every day. We installed 520 tons of NJDOT RCA/DCA. That's DGA, pardon me. That's the product that Weldon Materials has been supplying for roads in many occasions, including I believe they've been using that in the township in Wickham Woods for the drainage repair that's going on. I'm just going to stop you there. I just don't think we need to have this as a court of inquiry here. Certainly that product, I know there's some questions about whether it was inspected properly, whether it was state certified, and I'm sure we could go back and forth. I think the committee has heard an awful lot And I don't think we need to really rehash what has been the problem as much as what is the solution. Where are we going? Why are things not getting done?
Monday, we're starting to move that 520 tons off the property and replace it with the DGA, which is the state certified base material. We're waiting on my engineer to get a certification to John Ruskey's office for the rub rail that adjoins the guide rails. The monuments that were required to be installed and then registered with the county, it's either going to be done tomorrow or Monday. All those 20 tree non-disturbance area and conservation easement monuments have been installed.
Let me ask this question. How far away are we from the first house, from the development being at a readiness level where the first house can put a foundation in the ground?
We're probably a month away, 3 weeks to a month.
John, would you concur with that assessment?
The three item, can I finish?
Please, go ahead, I'm sorry.
John, before you speak, let me just say the three things that my understanding that Primavera requires is the guide rails being complete, the filing of, we filed the easements on all the property in 2013. It has now been required that we refile those with the statement as to where the physical monuments are for the tree non-disturbance easements on the 7 lots on the north side, the conservation easements south of the retention basin, and the conservation easements on Block 9, Lot 1, and Lot 101. The descriptions are reaching Steve Schaefer's office tomorrow, my attorney, and we will be filing that with the county. The other item is the road, and that means removing the 520 tons of the RCA/DGA and putting the other material in from Weldon, proof rolling it, meeting the inspection requirements of John Ruskey's office, and paving that with the base paving. That will complete all the paving to the eastern end of the subdivision. That's all I have to say on that matter. I have one other item I do want to share with the board. When we started the project, Mr. and Mrs. Blumenthal's roadway up to the top of the road, had no guide rails, had some places the road was 9 to 11 feet wide, very ridden with potholes. It's now 20 feet wide. It has Belgian block curbing on each side. It has guide rails on the steep side. Mr. and Mrs. Blumenthal enjoy being the first gas user on top of the hill. We supplied gas to the complete project. They're the first user of the sanitary sewer system. We installed that at no cost to the Blumenthals. They have a new paved driveway, which we paved at our cost. We moved their electronic gate and paid for the majority of the repairs to that gate, which was defunct at the time that we moved it. We are currently, in fact today, I think they were putting more topsoil in the Blumenthal's front yard adjacent to that new driveway and planting Pachysandra. And the one last item that we have, which will be done as soon as the plumbing permit is reviewed by the plumbing inspector, and that is attaching the water system to the Blumenthal's house, and that's going to be done within the next 10 days. So the Blumenthals are then enjoying 3 new services
as well as an improved roadway.
I'm going to interrupt you because we're really far afield from, I think, what should be an appropriate discussion here. We don't really need to hear all of the blow-by-blow description of what you claim to have to have happened and what you've, how magnanimous you've been towards the Blumenthals. What we do have to deal with is that you are a year beyond the completion date required in the developer's agreement. You've been given several extensions, and you're still not finished. So what's contemplated tonight is the Township Committee is being presented with a resolution for them to consider, and at our recommendation to approve, that declares you in default and get your bonding company put on notice that you're in default. In the meantime, I suggest to you that you work with all due diligence and do your best to get this thing done. It's been long enough. And that's all that needs to be said. It's been long enough. You're way overdue. Now, weather is always factored in, and you get consideration for that. And the Township Committee, I think, has been generous in giving you an audience time and time again and agreeing to, I believe, 3 extensions. And there's discussions about yet another extension. But I think everybody's patience at this point is at the end. You need to get this project finished. And that's all that needs to be said.
Thank you, Mr. Gao. Seeing no one else come forward, I'm going to close out this hearing of the public portion for hearing of citizens' petitions. We do have an introduction of an ordinance tonight. It's ordinance 2016-13. This is a bond ordinance to authorize the making of various public improvements and the acquisition of new, additional, or replacement equipment and machinery, new information technology equipment, and new automotive vehicles, including original apparatus and equipment in, by, and for the Township of Chatham in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $885,000 to pay the cost thereof, to make a down payment, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. And in basic language, Tom, this is basically the capital improvements that...
These are all the projects that we talked about at budget time that were adopted as the capital part of the municipal budget.
Absolutely. Can I have a motion to introduce?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes?
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Public hearing will be on May 12th.
Very well. Consent agenda, before we move forward, any questions on any of the items on it? Or Greg, why don't you please read them first, and then we'll...
We have this evening Resolution 2016-98, receipt of reports, 2016-99, approving meeting minutes, 2016-100, refunding overpayment of taxes, 2016-101, approving social affair permit, 2016-102, releasing third-party overtime escrow balances, 2016-103, amending 2016 budget for a Division of Criminal Justice grant, 2016-104, amending 2016 budget for an NJDOT grant for Woodland Road, 2016-105, authorizing payment to Municipal Group, 2016-106, approving Fire Department membership, 2016-107, authorizing estimated tax billing, and 2016-108, declaring Phoenix Chatham 1 and Phoenix Chatham 2 in default.
Mike, any question?
Yes, regarding this default.
Yeah, I would like a little bit of discussion on the motion.
Albert, can you...
Well, why don't you pull that out,
Okay,
vote on the remainder of the consent agenda, and then we can have a further discussion on that.
very well. Any questions on any other items in the consent agenda?
No.
So can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda resolution 2016-098 through 2016-107, removing 108?
So moved.
Oh, yes.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes. Okay, now we will discuss as a separate item, resolution 2016-108, declaring Phoenix Chatham 1 and Phoenix Chatham 2 in default.
Why don't you have a motion and a second, then a discussion?
Can I have a motion to introduce Resolution 2016-11? Motion to.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And now a discussion?
I think it's, what you really want to do is ask me questions. I think you've had a lot of discussion.
Yes.
So I think you're more
Please.
interested in questions
Yes.
of the engineer and myself.
Yes, my first question, John, if I may. If we take this action to notify the bonding, that we're thinking about using the bond to complete the project on our end, but also encouraging the developer to get the work done before we have to take that step. Is there a list of projects and a time frame in your mind that of what we're talking about here? I mean, would you recommend that we act in 1 week or in 1 month, or what's the reasonable amount of time that we are expecting this developer at this point to finish this portion of the job?
My expectation, recommendation is that tomorrow we send the certified letter out to the bonding company and alert them that we have found him in default and that they are to take action. They're not going to come out on Monday and meet me out there in the field Monday morning and walk it and take care of this. This is going to take a while. And ultimately what will happen is the bonding company will reach out to Mr. Gunn, find out what the issues are, and they will ultimately probably put pressure on him to get this done because they don't want to be involved. They want this project done, and they're going to focus on getting it done. And so that will put greater pressure on them. What's the expectation for them to complete? If we're getting the bonding company involved, we're going to say complete everything. Go complete all the work in the restoration, complete everything up to the final surface course. They'll do everything up to that point to make the road safe, and that would be the focus of getting that work done. What's involved to get the road paved? This is just a couple of days worth of work. This isn't a month. This is a couple of days. But it will take a month. It may take 2 months. That's why the reason why we're getting the bonding company involved.
So effectively, we're putting the developer on notice that possibly in as short of 1 month, in order to protect his, so that he doesn't get.
Yeah, usually what happens when my experience, when calling in the bond, usually the developer is not responsive, they're MIA, you have to call it in, or he's financially bankrupt, and you have to do that, and that's usually the case is when you're calling in. In this case, it's just a matter of the development is just taking way too long. It's way too disruptive to the community. It's a public nuisance. And the quality of work has been poor. And it's just there's been constant rework that's been going on. And ultimately, Mr. Gunn is not building a road for himself. Mr. Gunn is building a road for Chatham Township. We're going to own this road. It has to meet the minimum, at the minimum, quality in order to meet the service life that we intended to. And ultimately, we do these inspections on behalf of the township to make sure that the work is being done so that when you take acceptance to this, we're not going to get a failure of a road in 5 years. We're going to get a minimum 15, 20 years of service life out of it. And that's what we have to, that's our main interest, is that this is an asset that's going to take ownership of the township.
And building on that thought that this is going to be our road, and what the Blumenthal's concern was about only having the lower course done and having to deal with raised manhole covers and whatever. If proper construction procedures are that we want to keep it at that level and not put the final course on until 9 houses are built, I mean, are we looking, in fairness to the Blumenthal's, are we saying that they're going to have to deal with raised manholes, or maybe raised manholes with an apron around it for 2 or 3 more years until 9 houses are done?
First, I'll just indicate that it is unfortunate that the Blumenthals are, it is a very unique situation, and typically in a subdivision plan, the roads are built and the surface course isn't done for a number of years, and the houses are built, homeowners come in and they buy a home in a new development, and so the new homeowners coming in, they know what they're buying into because they drive on the road, they have the manholes, you maneuver, so it's not unusual to have a road of this nature and driving in this nature. It's done very commonly. What's unique in this situation is that the Blumenthals are in the midst of a subdivision happening around them, and so they're being exposed to this because of the location of their property. The developer's agreement indicates the way this application was represented to the planning board, that it was going to take a relatively short period of time for all the homes to be built out. And in fact, the condition of approval, the condition of a resolution, the planning board resolution, is that the final paving had to be done in 2017. And after 2017, if the other houses aren't built, he has to, at the end of the conclusion, when the last house is done, we have to inspect the roads, and if the road is not look like it's been, it's not going to meet the extended 15 years of the service life from that point, because it has got the abuse of the construction, Mr. Gunn is obligated to mill and pave it and then redo the road at the time when the construction is completed. That's the current resolution as it stands. So it is obligated to pave it in 2017. That's the current agreement.
So just to be clear then, all the homes do not have to be completed. The final paving course is supposed to be done in 2017, and if it has to be done again because it takes 6 years to build the homes, then so be it.
Correct. Then we don't release we hold that performance bond until the last house is done, and that's how the resolution is stated.
So the performance bond that we would take ownership of, if that's how it's going to work, what do we do with that? Are we then at liberty to take that money and put it to work?
Ultimately, the bond is similar to an insurance policy,
Right.
and ultimately the bonding company will assign someone to actually do the work. We don't get a check from the bonding company. We don't become construction managers. Ultimately, the bonding company steps up and they complete the work.
Right. And they would be appointing somebody who's more...
Well, that's not 100% correct. Under the municipal land use law, the bonding company has the option of tendering the bond or completing the work. That's the...
I never went through that scenario.
Correct. That's their option. Generally, the bonding company does retain a contractor as a result of a takeover agreement to complete the work, or has the work completed through the current contractor. What I think the engineers try to explain is, at this point, what you're really doing is bringing the bonding company in, and then it's working with the bonding company and the developer to get the project or the development completed, the public improvements, not the entire development, but the public improvement portion of this. So it's really an attempt to try to bring closure to this within a reasonable period. But unless the bonding company tenders the bond to you, that is still a private contract, a private job.
So we could conceivably be no further towards a solution, just maybe switching horses in midstream. I know this is a situation that the Blumenthals brought up months and months ago, and acquiesced to all the extensions, saying, why would we switch now? We're already in too deep, and switching contractors, switching pavers, switching road builders, whatever, would only set them further back, or set us further back. And now we haven't moved the rock at all, except for we're bringing the bonding company in.
Well, first of all, that's the procedure.
Right.
And secondly, I think there was, throughout this period, an attempt by everyone to avoid having to take this step.
Right.
Because this has a consequence, obviously, to the developer, and it may have an additional delay on the project. But again, at this point, the recommendation is that you do declare it in default. Just to give you a highlight of some of the dates, on May 30th, 2013, that's the effective date of the developer's agreement. There was to be that the public improvements were to be completed by May 28th of 2015. You may recall that by May 30th of 2015, you may recall that on May 28th, you gave them a 30-day extension through June. That date was not met. There were summonses that were issued in the municipal court that resulted in a municipal court resolution settlement agreement on October 13th of 2015, requiring that the work be completed by January 31st of this year. As of today, those public improvements remain unfinished. The bond also called for the work being completed by December 8th of last year, and that was part of the reason you did not call a default previously, because the bond was not due yet. The bond gave them until December 8th to complete the work. Then it was extended to the 31st of this year as a result of the settlement agreement in the municipal court. As the administrator said, there have been discussions about another extension, and there are documents to that effect, but they have not been finalized or signed or presented to you for final consideration. But this is a step that at this point you're being asked to consider. How successful it is still remains to be seen, but you're at the point where waiting longer may not be advisable.
Very well. Thank you, Albert. Greg?
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes. Tonight we have on discussion item 2 possible ordinances or resolutions. Ordinances for sure. The first is the to codify the Robert Drive parking regulations. We revisited this, or visited this, I should say, maybe a year ago, 7 months ago, and nothing has changed. It seems to be working, and we are going to leave the existing structure as is. I do not see a copy of the old ordinance here. Greg, I don't know if you have it. Oh, it's up front? Oh, thank you. So does anyone have any questions? I think everyone probably remembers the questions. It seems to be effective, and we just want to make sure the signs are codified so the chief can be happy. Is that right, chief? Did I wake you up? So this would be introduction of ordinance 2016-14, ordinance of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey, amending section 7-11.1 of the revised general ordinance of the township titled Time Limit Parking on J Road and Robert Drive. Do I have a motion to introduce ordinance 2016-14?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Public hearing on May 12th.
Tom, what kind of notice goes to the residents on Roberts that this is, action is being taken just to formalize what they are already aware of? I mean, we're assuming that there's nobody out there with an issue over it. Do we reach out?
Well, this gets published.
It'll be published in the Courier next Thursday. It'll be posted on the township website tomorrow morning.
If you want to mail this to the homeowners, we could do that. Is that what you're asking?
I guess that's what I'm asking, yeah. Is it worth going the extra step just to let them know whether we're formalizing what we think that they've asked for and what we think that they've lived with for the last year and have liked, and just to go the extra yard?
No, we could send them a copy of the notice that gets published with a cover letter saying the public hearing will be at the next meeting.
Okay. And the agenda was on the website to indicate that this was a topic of discussion, and we can see how many people have come out to
They're in droves.
talk about it.
Yeah, it's good to know. That's a good point. So, very good. All right, thank you, Greg. The next item on discussion tonight is approving the Red Brick Schoolhouse for the Historical Society, a facility use agreement. As many of you probably know, the Red Brick Schoolhouse has been a host of many things, including the municipal building up until, what, 1986, I think, something like that? Is that right? Come on, Sarah, Sally? 1986, yeah. And it still hosts organizations use the building on occasion, but certainly the Historical Society has used it as essentially a meeting place to archive the historical data from Chatham Township, but also acts as a museum. And if you haven't been to it, you should visit it. And there's a lovely new sign up posting the hours, 2 to 4 on Sunday afternoon. So certainly come by. But what we're trying to introduce tonight, what we're looking to introduce is an ordinance that would allow them a facility use agreement. Even though they're already using the building now, this would make it more formal, that they would have official access to the building. We would do it in a similar fashion as we do the senior center. It would be a lease for $1 a year, and they would get to use the premises. And this will help not only in establishing a home, but also in providing an opportunity to get grants from different services, because often when you, an organization like this, when they're looking for grants, they want to know that the town is committed to wherever you're situated, wherever your home is, and that you're not going to be thrown out in a year. So no, we wouldn't do that, but we do want to make it official, so that opens the door for that. And certainly there's some historical restoration that would like to be performed on the Red Brick Schoolhouse, and hopefully this helps in that matter. So, any questions as far as that's concerned? And I want to thank Albert for going back and forth with me on several emails. I will get, my goal with Albert and the legal system is to try to get them all to understand the KISS principle. It's very difficult, but we're working on it, aren't we? So, single-handedly, I'm trying to do it. But no, but thank you for all your work on this, Albert. And a lot of it had to do with the deed, looking back at the deed and what the deed originally said. I don't know if many people know this, but the property was given to the township by Sam Averett and his wife way back when. I'm not exactly sure, but they deeded the property to the township, and part of that was for historical purposes. So here we are. Any questions?
No, sounds like an excellent idea.
Can I have a motion to introduce ordinance 2016-15, which would be an ordinance authorizing the use and occupancy of certain municipal lands and buildings, being the Red Brick Schoolhouse in the Township of Chatham by the Historical Society of the Township of Chatham.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sullivan?
Yes.
Public hearing will be scheduled for May 12th.
Very well. Thank you.
And mark your calendar as a reminder in 50 years to renew this.
You never, but don't come at 49. If you come in 49 years, we get discombobulated.
Do you think
I
this one will still
anticipate
be
being
working?
retired
Okay,
after the
put it
next
on
30.
there. All right, well, thank you.
If I'm still working here in 50 years, something will have gone radically wrong.
Dramatically.
Or dramatically right, you never know. Fountain of youth, so.
I'll still be here. Me and Bailey will still be here.
Bailey will be mayor again.
This point, I'm going to open it up to a hearing of citizens. Anyone like to come forward and anything that's on your mind? Seeing no one come forward, I'm going to close out the hearing of citizens. And I want to thank Sarah Stanley and Sally Walker for coming tonight from the Historical Society to be here to listen to our entire meeting to get to that. So Thank you for sticking it out. We have no executive session tonight, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.